At the end of an ERP implementation, everyone has a list of things that they wish they knew ahead of time. Hi, I'm Eric ROARK, the CEO of ROARK, an accounting and finance, consulting, and executive search firm. And today, I want to talk about the 8 things that everyone should know before they start an ERP implementation. The first thing that you want to do is you want to get the complete leadership team buy-in for the ERP implementation. Look, it can't just be the project of the CFO or the CEO. An ERP implementation touches everywhere of the company. So it's really important to have a successful implementation to get the support of all the people. For some organizations, that's just the C-suite. For some, it's the C-suite and key managers. So point number 1, get the buy-in of the leadership team. After you've got the leadership team buy-in, the next thing you're going to want to do is be prepared to adjust the processes to the ERP implementation. Look, the ERP providers are doing thousands of implementation amongst many users that's really building up the best practices. And when you get to a specific industry ERP, that's great. It's going to be specific for your industry, which is going to be helpful. And that's even more of a compelling reason why, because then you're going to be adopting those best practices. Take advantage of that knowledge that's been built into the system and fight the resistance to just go with the old processes of the way we used to do it. Thirdly, you're going to want to look and minimize any customizations that you need to get the ERP the way you want it. Now, it's important to realize the difference between configuration and customization. Configuration is just setting up the software the way it's naturally intended and built to do. Customization is adding on new functionality or changing the software so that it can achieve a certain objective. Look, not all customizations are bad, but it's very important to weigh the cost value. So if you look at building on a customization, what tends to happen is it slows down the updates to the system, it costs more money, and it just becomes more time consuming. So it makes you a lot less agile. So it's very important to weigh any kind of customizations that you're proposing to the system and if that is the proper system for you. Tip number 4, change management. Everybody embraces change differently. Change management is critical during an ERP implementation. Look, everybody has a different tolerance for change, but we find is most people are afraid of change. So on that point, it's so important to communicate to all employees what you plan on doing, the value in it, how it helps them, so that they can become active participants in the change itself. Make sure that you communicate frequently as you go along. And pro tip is to embrace change agents. So every organization has people that really enjoy change and like to build. Those change agents that are influencers within your organization are going to help to get that message out and be able to get people to adopt. 5, use the 80-20 rule during an ERP implementation. They say that perfection is the opposite of doing. That's 100% correct in this case. So it's very important to be able to get the most important things and move things forward. Look, if you can get to 80% going, there's always going to be fine tuning and things like that. Those are the 20% fixes and updates that you can make during the process. If you get the 80% going, then you're always going to evolve and progress. Even if you try to do the 100% and get it perfect, you're going to be wrong because there's no way to anticipate in something so complex all of the needs of the organization. Make sure that you stick to the 80-20 rule. You're going to get there faster and everybody's going to be a lot happier. Tip number 6, augment your staff during the ERP implementation with consultants and integrators. Look, this is the biggest mistake that I've made as a CFO in the fact that I had a huge project and I tried to do it with existing staff. The staff in most organizations are typically fully utilized. The project and scope of an ERP implementation is going to touch every part and every department in your company. There's typically not the extra bandwidth in order to take on a project like this. If you don't, staff can be burnt out, the project can be delayed, and it could really frustrate important relationships like customers, vendors, and employees all alike. So it's really important that you find consultants and integrators that you trust and are experienced. If you do this, the project will likely bring in experiences outside the organization to be able to help move it forward and thoughts that you didn't think of. And this has a very strong ROI typically in avoiding overages and frustration and potentially damage to key relationships. 7, make sure that you're training your team on the new tools and the new processes. Look, you can put in all the greatest systems and process and everything in the world, but if no one knows how to use it in the organization, or if only a handful do, then you're not going to get the benefit out of it. So it's so important to user adoption to be able to have people understand what you've accomplished and how it's going to improve their lives. That is done during the training process. And if you don't get good training, users may not adopt and they won't know how to use the system efficiently. So that's when you're going to get all the friction and the frustration. All the people who weren't bought into the change is going to come out at that point. That can be a major risk to the success of the ERP implementation. Now, some companies try to go out and use the VAR or the people who sold the company to be able to do the training. And they do a great job on how to use the tool. But it's one thing on how to use the tool. It's an absolute another thing of how to use the tool in your organization. And this is where consultants can really be effective, because they're likely working within your organization, working with the people, and they understand the specific needs of the user, and they can strongly help with the adoption, buy-in, and training that will make your process more successful, your project more successful. Our 8th and final tip for ERP implementation is, after you've got everything done, people trained and everything like that, make sure things stay in the system. Look, one thing that happens is people tend to go back and regress to their old habits and what they're used to doing. And likely this ERP system represents a change, so they're going to go back and say, well, this is the way I always did it. You need to keep the momentum going and reinforce across the organization to use the system. You should be reducing spreadsheets, you should be reducing manual processes, and if you're not staying on top of that in the succeeding months, then there is a very real risk that people will fall back. You implemented this new system for a reason. Make sure that you're getting all the benefits of it, and make sure that you're getting frequent communication out to all employees. And look, this is a great time to reinforce like best practices, spotlight somebody, recognize somebody. Hey, this person did this with the software, it's amazing. Get that culture really built up to adopting and being able to use the new system, and you will go far as your employees adopt. 8 things that everyone should know before they start an ERP implementation. It's going to save you a lot of time, money, and frustration. And look, at the end of the day, you'll end up looking like a hero. If you do need help with an ERP implementation, reach out to our team here at ROARK. We have a link in the notes below, and thank you for watching the video.